Good morning, Ron.
Good evening, Peter. Oh, it's been a hell of a week for me. I don't know how you've been going, but I've had a lot of challenges this week.
Yeah, it's been very challenging. Yeah, it's been a hell of a week for me too, but hell's not so bad once you get used to it.
Well, most of our conscious memory is in this purgatory that we call Earth, which is sometimes hellish.
That's whatever we make it, isn't it?
Well, we can choose how to respond. I don't know that we actually have a whole lot of control over a lot of things that go on.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, I mean, there's always the collective manifestation that you have to deal with as well as your own.
Yes, and the collective manifestation seems to carry a whole lot more weight with what most people are experiencing than what we would like. I mean, I do believe we're moving into a time when we will be able to more consciously create our own reality and actually experience what we choose to experience rather than just responding and reacting to what seems to be forced upon us.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's it indeed. We're just constantly responding and reacting and reacting against whatever's thrown out, and it really stops us from creating, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You've got to stop reacting, and you've got to start creating, and that takes a little bit of integrating of the opposites, really. So
And
many fragments.
yeah, most people are unwilling to do that and don't even get it.
Well, afraid to do that too. It takes a little bit of courage to step up to the plate and say, "Well, I'm going to be responsible for myself now. I'm responsible for whatever I create." As long as you've got some, outside entity doing it for you, then you've got somebody to blame as well.
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge, and I get letters, and I can see where people are coming from. Somebody wrote me this past week, a few days ago, saying the old question about the OPPT, where's the money? And I get it because I see my daughter and her family struggling tremendously to make ends meet. Their bills exceed by several $100s a month what their
Yeah.
income is, and they're behind, I think, 2 months or something in their rent. And I mean, it's unbelievable the stress that this creates in relationships
Yep.
and creates for people. So I totally empathize with people that say, "Where's the money?" I mean,
Yeah.
that's where the consciousness is with the majority of people, and I get it. I mean, I understand a little bit more of the picture maybe than some people do, but I also understand where these people are coming from.
Of course, I've got several friends that are in the same situation, looking at, lights out and no electricity and utilities, and then a little bit further down the track, goodbye property, goodbye house, flat, whatever. It's going on everywhere, and that's the sort of pressure that I guess we need to be kept under that sort of pressure, because the moment that pressure sort of wears off and is not there, then you have the mind space to become creative, to start imagining, being, and doing, I suppose. That's what it's all about.
And
It stop.
we're going there.
Yeah, well, it stops you from doing all the inging stuff. When you worry-ing, all the other inging goes out. And that's really what it's all about at
Oh.
the moment.
Have you been following the situation with Kerry Campbell at all?
Uh, I have followed it from afar at the moment, but yeah, I have sort of taken the occasional peek at what's going on. So apparently, she's still incarcerated in New Zealand at the moment.
Yeah, I guess she goes to court again on Tuesday, and there's this other lady that also from New Zealand that's saying that she's a Maori separatist person that Kerry is, and that she's against white people, and just trying to badmouth her and stuff like that. Which, I mean, I just don't get that. I mean, I'm sorry, I just don't get that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose there are such things as Maori separatists, but to start branding her as such, I don't think she doesn't come across like that to me at
Not
all.
to me either.
No,
Anyway,
but
what would you specifically like to talk about? So far, we've just been chatting, but
Well,
Maybe there's something that's pressing for you, and I want to give you that opportunity.
there's nothing really pressing for me other than the same old argument of the New Ages and the I am nobodies. Ron Aristo was touching on that in his last video. He was talking with you. He's talking about Mooji, and I've got an interesting perspective on that because I sort of went through all those modalities myself, and then sort of found myself back where I started from, but in a much better way, really. So you are running the recording now? Or?
Oh yes, it's been going from the very beginning.
Oh, I didn't realize. So there you go, off the cuff, folks.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's been a nice little talk so far, and I mean,
it's good.
I'm ready to run with it.
Yeah, let's roll. That's it. Just roll with the punches and flow with the energy as it goes. Now, I've been thinking a lot about when Aristo mentioned Mooji, and I was sort of quite into Mooji for a while there, as I was trying to go deeper within myself, and then, from Mooji, if you sort of get Mooji as the front door into the mansion, and in the back rooms, you got all the Advaita people, and they teach you to be nothing, right? So that's quite interesting. And then generally somebody will ask the Advaita teacher a question and say, well, what's to go with this or what's to go with that? And then the standard answer of the Advaita teacher is then to say, well, first of all, I've got to inform you that you think you're asking a question of someone, but there's really no one here, And I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. Yeah, that's funny. It is funny, but there is something to it. There is something to it, and to me, what I got out of the whole Advaita thing is I'm a camera, and that may sound strange to you that I'm a camera, but I'll try and explain what I mean by that, because it is part of the equation. This nothingness and this emptiness is an essential part of the equation, because emptiness is a point of inspiration, and emptiness is also nothingness. Emptiness is a point of observation as well. It's where you have stepped one back from yourself, from your ego or personality. And I want to touch upon that too, because they're two different things as far as I'm concerned, ego and personality, although they're based on the same entity. But you step back from that, and then there's this nothingness and this emptiness. And in this emptiness, you can observe as a neutral observer. It's that spot in the center where you can neutrally observe the situation. And the reason I say I'm a camera is, well, just imagine yourself as divine, and you've created this whole universe and this wonderful planet Earth and all that sort of stuff. And you really want to see what that's like. You want to experience that creation. You want to completely understand the creation from all angles and all levels. And there's this thing called 5D photography, I believe it's called, where they have, 5 or 6 or 10 different cameras take a picture of the same object from all different angles. And let's say that these cameras each have, 20 megapixel capacity or whatever. So they take it all from different angles and they just layer it. And each layer, bit of information from each camera, the image becomes sharper and it becomes more defined and it becomes more dimensional and has more contrast and color definition, and it's more information in the picture. And in a sense, when you're in the state of observer, that is what you are. You are that camera. You're actually observing. And that's where the whole creation of Earth brings you into focus as the observer. The way that light travels, the way that we see things. Okay, I see the sun shining on a leaf, so the light is traveling to my retina, making signals, going to my brain. So that is actually bringing me into attention as the observer. And as the observer, you are just that. You're the observer. You're the observer of yourself as part of creation, and you're the observer of creation itself. And so many observers make for that composite image, that the creator gets the composite image of the creation. It becomes sharp and it becomes defined and it becomes in focus and it becomes real, experientially real. It becomes a multi-dimensional photograph of creation. So in that sense, I'm a camera and I'm nobody. In that sense, my function is to be here to relay the experience of this creation to the larger whole that's created it. And it's very, very hard to put that in words, but that is where sort of the Mooji and the Advaita people are at, is just two eyes in the sky. I'm just getting the picture, the overview of what it is that I've actually created. And I know that when I experience that state of being, that the earth is just the most amazing place, just to watch the falling of a leaf and to fully understand all the forces of the universe came together in just creating that event, which it is. And to have that full experience of that is an amazing, and it's a beautiful place, and you truly see the earth for the wonderful, beautiful island paradise that it is. It's sort of like the Barbados holiday island for the spirit. It's supposed to be just this wonderful paradise. But then you have the observed as well, and then you have the me. And okay, I can sit in that contemplation. Not always. It's not a skill. It just happens or it doesn't. And you can sit in that, and somebody will come walking past and say, "G'day, Peter. How are you, mate? Great weather today." And then I go, "Oh, hello. How are you?" And then you're somebody again. Then there's me. So the Advaita people sort of say, well, whenever there's a me, there's an ego, and that's bad. So we need to always be the eyes in the sky. And yeah, it's a valid part of experience, folks, but you've got to come out of that, because there is a me. The moment that I sit in that situation and somebody says, "G'day, Pete, how are you?" there is a me. Okay, that moment that I respond, there is a me to respond with, to relate to another me or another person, another entity. Still another me, but so in that moment, I am someone. And then the Advaita people say, well, that's ego. And then other people say, yeah, that might be ego, but ego is good. And I'm seeing a difference here. And the difference that I see is that when I'm that someone, ego is the thing that comes from woundedness and from being hurt. Okay, you've displayed anger as a child, and your parent says, you should not display anger, so you get ostracized, you get hurt because you've expressed what was in your emotions. And so because everybody around you rejects that emotion of yours, and you feel hurt because of that, you build up an inner entity that's a controller. Whenever this anger comes now, this controller comes in and says, no, don't feel that, because you will get hurt. People will ostracize you. So what I see the ego as is just a number of psychological layers, so defense mechanisms that we've set up so as not to get hurt within our relationships, not to get hurt within society. And then, of course, we go to have education and we get hurt because we get constantly compared against what the perceived standard of academia is, which is really just learning how to comply with the corporate boxes so we can make more money for those people. And so we're constantly hurt in this society, and in so many ways, our parents think that teaching us not to be angry is a good thing because they love us, so we get hurt out of love even. And they're the layers that make up what I call the ego, because that is all these forces that's not your natural self that are controlling your behavior. And what an ego has is a need to protect itself, because it's come out of a genuine perceived need for self-protection. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, really. But it starts to control. And then when it starts to control, it starts to interfere in your whole experience of yourself as me. And so that ego is constantly out filtering everything that comes to you through all the defense mechanisms before you can really fully savor what's actually coming to you, be that from the inside, emotions, feelings, thoughts, and they're being censored by this ego entity. But when all the woundedness is healed, when we learn to fully accept ourselves, what are we left with then? Not what the Advaita people say, oh, two eyes in the sky, nothingness. No, what we are left with then is what I call, as opposed to the ego, when the ego layers, the layers of the onion have been peeled away, is there nothing left? No, there is, there is the personality, and for me there's a big difference between ego and personality, because Ego seeks to serve itself. Because it's wounded, it seeks to protect itself. Because it sees lack, it seeks to bring abundance to itself. Because it sees powerlessness, because I've been so hurt and I'm on the defensive, I'm powerless, so it tends to seek to bring power to itself. So once we drop all these things, then we have the personality, and the personality does not have that armor. Therefore, the personality is open to being the eyes in the sky, the nothingness, to get the overview and the inspiration. And then the personality is the instrument whereby that inspiration, that passion of creation that the universe is, that inspiration gets enacted through that personality. And so then the me that I have is an instrument by which I serve the whole of creation. And so the Advaita people are really, and we're back to this thing we've discussed before, this principle. The Advaita people are really, it's either or. And I know you and I are both guys who say both and, yeah, that's it. And so you have to, as my message always is a very simple one, is feel what you truly feel, accept who you truly are, heal your woundedness, and you don't need a teacher, you don't need a savior, you don't need a messiah, you don't need anything but what comes out of that, because your own experience comes out of that. And the only true experience that you can have is what you experience for yourself. The only truth there is the truth that you experience for yourself. And it's been such a struggle for us mentally and emotionally to become free from these constraining religions and gurus and if you look at history too, you can just see the whole unfolding of this. That in Europe you had the Druids, and the Druids were natural religion, natural shamanic religion, as you had it with most of the indigenous. You can't even call it religion. You can call it more a cosmology, perhaps. And so the natural Aboriginal, Indigenous, Druidic traditions were all about you have value. You are a valuable piece of the whole. You are one with everything, and therefore you have as much value as anything else. And then somehow the whole salvationist thing came in that said, well, you're a wretched sinner. You're a wretched sinner, and you have to listen to me and do as I tell you so that you may be redeemed, so that you may at some stage, return to heaven, And this is where I see Stockholm syndrome. I see that in all these religions, in all the salvationist religions, I see Stockholm syndrome. And I don't know if you're aware of what that is.
Define it for us.
Well, Stockholm syndrome is some research came out of Sweden that dealt with people who were abused and their abusers, and people who were abducted and their abductors. And if the victims, the abused and the abducted, were in a long-term captivity or a long-term abuse situation, they fell in love with their captors. And so you have me, the little wretched sinner, sitting in, oh, Lord, please forgive me, Lord, please forgive me. And then, in my emotional state, feeling that the Lord says, it's okay. You just need to suffer a little bit more and then you'll be worthy of heaven. And meanwhile, know that I love you, and send me your love. And you go, yes, I love you, Lord, and I will be better and I will strive. And that's the ego trying to somehow fix itself, trying to somehow find something outside of itself to help fix itself, because it lacks that intrinsic sense of worth that in the indigenous culture is absent. In the indigenous, druidic, shamanic, you are worthy, you have value. And we see this reflected, this whole salvationist thing is even reflected in our financial systems, because we go to a bank and we think that we get a loan and we think that they're helping us and enabling us to have a home, whereas it's really us by our signature who's creating a bond that goes on a bond market that attracts the finance. So we've actually created that money ourselves, and then we go to a bank and we pay it back with interest, and that's
Which
the
is
same
insane.
thing. Yeah.
And the other thing, you went to the either or thing. Either or, any religion or philosophy that has an either or paradigm is separation consciousness.
Yep.
Pure and
Yep.
simple. It's separation consciousness.
Yep.
Only the both and paradigm or
Yep.
mentality or viewpoint is actually unity consciousness. And so
Yep.
many teachers claim to be in unity consciousness and they're still teaching the either or thing.
Yes, absolutely right. And when you're saying when you're in separateness, then obviously that's the ego side of the personality, the woundedness side. And when you're in wholeness, that's the personality itself, the valuable personality that knows its connection with the whole and knows its function within the whole. And then once we know that we have value and that it's about function, then we can function, truly function intelligently within relationships and within relationship to a society, because I realize that I have value, therefore my function is a valuable one, therefore I freely exercise my function, which is in service to the whole of humanity, to the whole of planet Earth, to the whole of creation. So it then becomes about function rather than value, whereas the ego side is trying to pull value in all the time. And so you have it in the financial system too, because you've created the money, but yet, as with Stockholm syndrome in religion, so it is in finance. As above, so it is sideways. You end up paying the bank back the money you created with interest. And people think this is normal. Hello, think about it. You create the money and then you pay it back with interest, and the whole nation ends up with debt because of it. Whew.
Yeah, well,
If that,
there's a lot of people working, as I think you're aware. Yeah, I know you're aware, to create a new financial system that's based on more honesty and transparency, and that's happening. I mean, there's the guy's name is Bix, whatever. He's worked for mainstream media and he's been a financial advisor. Bix Weir, Weir. I listened to about a 30-minute thing, and he says sometime in August or September, the debt, all the commercial debt worldwide is going to be wiped out. I mean, just the slate's going to be wiped clean, and it's happening. I mean, it's imminent within the
yep.
next couple of months. And I mean,
Well, there are,
this is a mainstream guy. This
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
some off the wall, so-called off the wall alternative media person. This is a mainstream person.
Yeah,
Recognizing that this is the handwriting on the wall. He sees it, and many others are seeing it.
yes, but there is still, we have to deal with the underlying. As if it's just about a reset of a financial system, and it's not about all the other aspects that we just discussed, then who's fooling who? And that is where the powers that were are probably seeking to in some way represent themselves, do the phoenix, basically, burn the thing down and then rise out of the ashes as the savior, or the Robin Hood, we took from the rich and we gave to the poor. We have to watch out that changes like these are accompanied by that whole host of changes, that we get rid of this Stockholm syndrome, that we get rid of this, oh, we'll look to somebody to reset the financial system for us. No, we are the value. That's the message that we're talking about. That is what your natural person's already wrong. Your natural being is you are the value. And no matter what anybody does with any system or reset or whatever it is, if we don't recognize behind that, it's good that it's going to happen. It's got to happen. This whole fiat money bubble debt rubbish has got to go. But if we, in all of that, don't realize that we are the value, whether it's financially, whether it's in society, whether it's in religion, spirituality, if we don't realize in all of those endeavors and all of those things that play in human society, if we don't realize that we're the value, then again, we are going to miss the point, and we're just going to start the whole cycle over again. And this is what the message is from so many. And I'm seeing this trend of these new energy master Akashic record reading guys that are all of a sudden popping up out of the woodwork everywhere. And, some of these guys are saying, well, if you're not on the same timeline as me when it all happens, you're going to end up in the wrong paradigm, and you got to do this as I say, you got to do that as I say. And by the way, it only costs you $79.95 a month, and the course goes for 2 years. But, and I see this trend. And again, there is there is something always that wants to phoenix within the human psyche. When humanity starts to see through the facade and wants to make itself free, then always something comes out of the woodwork that tries to phoenix again. And this is what we need to guard against. Even when you start to find your freedom within yourself, you have to guard against that which is going to do the phoenix. And we have to do that individually and collectively. And I see you looking at the clock.
No, I'm actually no. You mentioned these Akashic record readings, and I mean, I was introduced to Andrew Bartzis, that I mentioned on my video today that I did earlier before we started talking, and he claims to when he was like 9 years old, I think, he all of a sudden realized that he could read the Akashic records of everybody in the baseball stadium. I mean, he just saw it all at once as a 9-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a psychic, and I don't know a whole lot about him. I never heard of him in my life till yesterday, and yet he claims a lot of what you were just saying about the timelines and stuff like that. Although it's not exactly the way you said it, and I've only had one listen to him, so I'm not an expert. But
I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but I see that there is a trend towards a new salvationism basically going on, as well as a trend towards the natural experience of spirituality. And it's always notable that people who advocate the natural experience of spirituality through self-acceptance and oneness, generally not people who ask you for money, and people who are salvationist are people who tell you, you're not good enough, you've got to do all these courses and learn all this stuff, and then you'll be good enough. And again, that's all back to the good old Catholic. You had these people that used to flagellate, get whips and whip themselves and go around saying mea culpa. I'm just no good. I'm just a horrible sinner.
Yeah, we
and that's
saw that
just
in that one of the movie with Dan Brown, is it? One of his Angels and Demons. Or
yeah.
one
That's
of those
right.
movies, you saw the guy, doing that.
Yeah, and it's like, and this is all this stuff. You're unworthy. You have no value. And anybody that tells me that I have no value, and they're going to by payment or by some other way teach me how to get this value, then I have to question that. I seriously have to question that, because I know from my innermost being that I have infinite value. I'm not a hopeless, I used to think that I was a hopeless bad sinner, bad person that did bad things. And I was just a load of BS belief system.
Yeah, well, I was there too. I was raised in that.
Yeah. So when you give all that up and you let that drop away, and then you start to experience the depths and the beauty that is not only in yourself, but in nature and in the universe and everyone else. Because really, I'm talking about the beauty of seeing a leaf falling, but the moment of wordless, mindless connection with another human being, the love that is present is beyond expression, is beyond experience. It just is something so incredibly connectedly beautiful, magic. Words just don't have my back on that stuff. It's just it's an experience, and it's the experience that I know we're all having underneath all this worrying about the finances and worrying about daily life. Underneath it all, it's not something you have to learn. You have it already. It's already done. You already have it. It's just by allowing ourselves to experience the good and the bad in ourselves as well, and bringing that to the center, and not being afraid of integrating both those factors. And
both and again.
Yeah, and both and again, and that's how we get there. Not that there's anywhere to get to, really, but I still have to use that phrase as it's language. It's limited.
Well, we've been asleep. It's waking up.
Yeah, it's waking up, but it's waking, being, doing. Anybody tells me that they're awake, then I have to go, well, where do you get an information from? I'm awake. That's something you remember. So it's not. If you say I'm awakening, I'm fully with you. I'll say, hey, where are you at? Do you know about this? Do you feel that? Have you experienced that? Great, excellent. Let's shoot the breeze. And that's what awakening, being, imagining, doing, relating is all about. It's all, like Aristo was saying in last Wednesdays, it's all energetic events. And that's where the inging comes in, And
The
and
verbing instead of the nouning.
yeah, exactly, and that's where it's at. Spirituality is not about those who will teach you how to add value onto yourself. That's the old paradigm of lack and want and need. And spirituality is about, at the moment, the awakening is about relating and peer to peering. We're all downloading the files from each other like a peer to peer network, like a torrent, BitTorrent download, really. You see all these things reflected in technology and science and the web. On the web you've got whatever you got in the human mind is on the internet, the good, the bad, the ugly, and so we're all bit torrenting from each other. We're all receiving tiny little bits together, and on our journey to relinquish what is false and to perceive within ourselves what is natural, what is beautiful, and what is real, and what is real love. And that is really what's happening at the moment. So yes, let's look forward to a banking and a value reset, but let's also look forward to finding within ourselves that we are the ultimate value.
Very good, Peter. I thank you once again for taking time to share with me. We've gone over a half an hour, and I'm probably not going to cut anything out. That may be the first couple of frames where the pictures are adjusting. But in any case, it's been an interesting discussion, and I always appreciate talking with you, and so do the people that listen, and I thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Ron, once again. And I always love what you bring out in me, because it's not quite always what I want to say. You think about things to say, and then the interaction happens, and something just comes out of you and gets drawn out of you. So, you make for fantastic talks, and it's always a really good interaction. So thank you very much for that, and thank you everybody for watching, and namaste, Ron.
Namaste, Peter.